So here, Victoria Beckham is talking about her upbringing, and she characterizes her upbringing as working class, blue collar, humble. You know, she came up and she's self-made, right? So then David Beckham hears this from the other room and interjects and calls her out for lying.
Let's watch the clip here. It's if you wonder, how they talk about like 4.0, like real life hard luck story beats 4.0 GPA every day. This is why, right? Because people will just make it up. Here we go.
I just fancied him, and it was as simple as that. Yeah, I mean, I think also we both come from families that work really hard. Both of our parents work really hard. We're very working class.
Be honest.
I'm being honest.
He just opens the bedroom door and he's like, hold up.
Did your dad drive you to school in?
So my dad did...
No, why not? What car was it?
All right, it's not a simple answer
What
because...
car did you get your dad to drive
It
you to
depends.
school in? No.
Okay,
What
in the
car?
80s, my dad had...
And then he goes back and he just leaves.
So he just closes the door like, my job is done here.
First
my
of all,
God.
alpha move on his part. Holy shit.
So he was not having it. He was not. But
Her other answer is worse. It depends. If your parents picked multiple cars to pick you up in, you weren't middle class. You weren't working class.
We're not talking about like parents driving a Lexus over a Toyota. We're talking a Rolls Royce, bro. Come on.
I can't. Like, but it's true these days. Like, you get social points. You get credit for coming from an upbringing that was of hardship. So
she's
some
literally Posh Spice.
She was literally Posh Spice.
Jeez.
I love it. I love it. She was my favorite Spice Girl.
I just don't like that people brag about being self-made. Like specifically,
You mean like the Jenners?
this is
Or
why
like,
this is why the Nepo baby conversation exploded, and why the New Yorker did that piece listing all of the Nepo babies in Hollywood and how they characterize themselves as self-made and they didn't have any help getting where they are in the industry, and it's absolutely not true.
It's fair to make the argument for a lot of, like, people would say that about Donald Trump, right? They would say like his dad gave him $1 million, and I'm like, you do know that billion with a B is like way more than million with an M, right?
For Trump, he grew up privileged, but also made more of himself than you could have ever expected.
Yeah.
So he
I'm
gets
sure
both.
Posh Spice did too. I'm sure Posh.
she?
I am sure Posh
Or
Spice.
is it more attributed
I
to
know
her
Posh.
marriage?
I know. No, I knew. I know
The
Posh
Spice Girls
Spice
movie?
way before. Look, I once watched a scene where the Spice Girls saved humanity by being the first people to greet aliens.
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's where cinema peaked.
Yes.
Like, entertainment peaked in
It was all downhill
1998
from there.
when the Spice Girls all got together and took a Polaroid photo with aliens and saved America saved the world, not even America, saved the world from an invasion. That was the height of cinema. And I knew who Posh Spice was before David Beckham because the Spice Girls were popular before David Beckham became famous for, what is it, football as they call it, soccer?
I think this is similar to how models make what I eat in a day videos.
Until
where
you
they
pointed
just
it out.
lie. They just lie about what they eat in a day because it's like you feel better bragging about being like naturally skinny rather than admitting that you work for it. Props to Victoria Beckham, because on the other hand, she talks about it and says like, yeah, I work extremely hard to keep my figure and I eat the same boring, tedious shit every day. And it's miserable, but I do it because I want to be skinny.
You always see those old like it used to be one of those things, they'd put them in all the magazines. You'd see them on the front counter at like the grocery store. Every time an actress would have a kid, they'd be like, here she is 1 month after having her kid, and she's like stick thin. Oh yeah. And it's like that, when I think of those moments, I do remember that women do have a pretty unrealistic goal. Used to have I mean, I don't know if it's like that now. Now they're like, oh, you weigh 500 pounds? Dope. That's cool.
Well, for those celebrities, it's usually because what they do is they plan to get a C-section instead of naturally giving birth, and then they get a tummy tuck at the same time as their C-section.
A mommy makeover.
Exactly.
As they
And then
say.
they're like in the media getting interviewed about it, like, how did you snap back so quickly? And they say, oh, just breastfeeding, genetics. You know, I guess I'm just blessed like that. It's disingenuous.
We need more hero husbands like David Beckham to come out when their wife, or hero wives if their husband is lying about his upbringing. If I have to hear, if one day Northwest is like, yeah, I had a really hard upbringing, and then I want Kim or Kanye to come out from the background. It's like, I'm gonna let you finish, but you did not have.
She has a very comfortable upbringing where she doesn't need or want for anything.
Yes,
but I think that doesn't mean she has an easy upbringing.
But that's not. You're adding nuance where no nuance actually is, right?
Yeah.
That's not what she's saying here. What she's saying is like, oh yeah, we were roughnecks in the oil fields here, working class. That's what we were here, and that's what she's saying.
Getting picked up from school in a Rolls Royce.
It is true though. Like, it is fair to point out for a lot of these kids, right, that there is a difference between having a financially stable upbringing and having an actual good upbringing. Because just because your family has money does not mean that your life isn't screwed up. It's just not screwed up in a way that's necessarily like accessible to us. It's not something we're going to understand in the same way. But ask anyone who wins the lottery, right? How many of them end up broke and addicted to drugs?
She could have worded this so much better and just said, like, I was raised to value having a good work ethic when I was growing up. Instead of saying, yeah, I came from humble beginnings. We were working class. We were blue collar. Like, that's where the lies started.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I wonder what he did for a living. What do you think he did for a living?
David Beckham?
No,
her father?
Posh Spice's dad.
Don't know.
I'm just curious. It says Victoria Beckham's parents were able to provide a comfortable life for their children, leading many to want to learn more about them. This is just them talking about this documentary. It says Victoria suggests so they actually talk about this clip here. Okay. It says she's descended from German artist and revolutionary Karl Heinrich Fander. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's not where the money came from. She was so apparently the shame about growing up in a wealthy household didn't abate as she became even more wealthy. So she's like, oh my God, I feel like she's like the typical awful affluent white liberal. Like, she's literally that, right? She's like, oh my God, I need to get rid of all this money. So her family was born in, she was born into the wealth, it says.
But what about David Beckham? Because she was really talking about both of them, and maybe he interjected because he knows that he came from a different class than she did.
Yeah, wouldn't that be more like frustrating for him? He's like, look, I actually did grow up from humble beginnings, and you're over here stolen valor, pretending that this was your story and this is not your story. But
I think for a lot of people that grew up in privilege, like Paris Hilton or Kim Kardashian, they made more for themselves and made more for their own names than they were given.
Yeah.
Which is the challenge for every Nepo baby in the entertainment industry, is like, can you overshadow your parents?
And that's a hard road to go down, right? Like, it's not a struggle you or I are gonna understand, but it doesn't make it any more of like a valid thing for them to be concerned about in their life. Especially a lot of times those parents are gonna have very high expectations for their kids, and you know, that's something everyone can understand, is not wanting to disappoint your parents, wanting to live up to the expectations or the goals that they have set for you. I think that's a fairly universal thing to understand.
I don't think there's any shame in nepotism or like being a recipient of nepotism and privilege. I really don't. I think there's definitely shame in lying about it.
Yeah.
Like at least just be real, you know?
Yeah. It's just really funny.
That's what bothers me about the Nepo baby conversation. The only thing that's wrong with it is denying that it exists.
Yeah. Well, do you think part of it is also because like we're in an age now where you are rewarded heavily for overcoming? So the problem is what you're overcoming has to be something that everyone can understand. And if what you've overcome isn't something that the people who you want to sell products to, or the people that are your audience, if they don't get it, it's not really useful to you. So it's more about your struggle being utilitarian in a sense.
Well, I think it's about cashing in on victim points.
Yeah, no, exactly.
If she talks about growing up poor or whatever,
oh my gosh,
growing up working class,
sometimes the windows on the Rolls Royce wouldn't roll down, and it was hell. Look, it's just sometimes we had to fly in economy. Sometimes we didn't even fly first class, she says. And she's like, you know, and then she became a Spice Girl where she was literally called Posh Spice. Like, shocking, right?
This is why parents like Jackie Chan or Gordon Ramsay exist, where like you have the ability to give your kid a super comfortable life, but you decide to make things a little harder for them.
I always like...
Which isn't really gonna work. It's just gonna make them resent you.
Plus, like a lot of them, it's like, oddly enough, because did you see the video that was going viral about like, it was like Isabel Brown or some conservative influencer looking at a chart of like Gen Z's rent prices going up as like the wage.
Yeah.
You saw that video, right? The odd part is like a Jackie Chan can cut his kid off of all the money that he might make, but is the kid going to inherit the properties you own? Because that's where the real, like he'll sell off the properties later.
Yeah.
Right? Like
We're
there's
going
more than
through
one
the biggest
way.
wealth transfer in history, they say. Is the money going to go to BlackRock or to your children?
Well, the children will then sell it to BlackRock so that they can buy a smaller home and then start investing the rest of it. So in the end, it's like they're not going to end up poor anyways. Plus, a lot of the thing you gain the most from having a parent of influence isn't necessarily the money they leave you, but the connections that they've imbued, that they've given you to be able to work in these industries. You can write a tell-all. Like someday, Jackie Chan's son will be able to write a tell-all book about how my dad didn't give me any money when he retired, or like when he died, and then he'll be able to give half that to the Communist Party. It'll be great. So it's like I said, different struggles for different people. Everyone has their own lot in life that they have to figure out, and we're not always going to be able to really understand the struggles or the hard done life of somebody who's just born into wealth. What they go through is just not what we go through.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Someone in the comments said David Beckham actually grew up working class, so he's legit
He's pissed. He's like,
now we
listen,
understand his reaction.
Stolen valor.
Yeah.
Stolen valor.
Then another person said she made Beckham. They're saying that who was more famous at the time?
I'm sure I would have heard of her, but I don't watch soccer, so I don't know.
You mean football?
Football. I don't watch football.
Field hockey. I don't know.
Like, because he became like a spokesperson for, like, he became like an H&M, like he was like the face of H&M for like a bunch of years.
Okay, one person said, why must everyone be working class? Can you just accept your richness? It's not like we're gonna blame you for being rich. That's false.
Yes.
You
Society-
absolutely will blame someone for being rich and hate them for having what you don't have. That is like
Maybe
the
not
culture
you,
of
maybe
resentment.
not this person, but
Yeah,
the culture we
not
live
that
in now,
individual.
the culture we live in now will absolutely hold it against them. You have one of two options. You either lean into it heavily, like the Kardashians, in which case you make a video where you say everyone just needs to work harder, which is actually good advice, but then get dragged because you're going to be called disconnected from the world, because it does sound insane when somebody who got famous by making a sex tape tells you to work harder,
Of course.
even if she has worked extremely hard since then. The advice may be good, but it's not going to catch in the way that you want it to
She
catch.
had momentum.
Yes.
to-
I got more respect for somebody who's rich and knows it than somebody who lies.
Yeah.
There you go. Don't. Well, where did all this start? I mean, a lot of this starts from like it's when people make the videos where it's like people criticize people on van life, and they're like you're not.
You're appropriating the aesthetics of poor people
They'll
for
say, like,
social media clout. They
your
say.
parents have money, so your parents can say. But a lot of times it's not that. A lot of times those people, they just work email jobs so they can work from wherever they want, and they make a good income, and they just choose to live like that. But it is a basic. It's one of the earliest way, like the easiest ways for people to write you off these days is they just say that your family's wealthy. Like I've always found that kind of culture really defeatist, where it's like you see the videos where it's like how I became successful. I get up at 5 a.m. every day. I eat my greens. I meditate. I journal.
It's literally Chet Hanks.
My dad gave me $5 million.
Literally
right?
Chet Hanks.
But people when that always just comes off as sour grapes to me. That just comes off as people. I'm like, they're still working, right? Like I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on myself. And if you're going to complain because this guy has a better lot in life, then you're going to be complaining about a lot of people. That's why you're not supposed to. What do they say? Comparison is the thief of joy. In a lot of ways, it is.
Mm-hmm.
You got to focus on your own journey. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.